fencing fanatics, Coach Jason here with episode 5 of our book review series. Starting to wind this down, I've just got a few more books I want to show you, but in today's episode, I want to show you my oldest books. I said at the beginning of the series that I've got a couple of first prints that are quite old, and I wanted to just introduce you to them today. My first one is from 1911, and this is the Encyclopedia of Sports, Volume 2 by the Lippincott Company. 448 pages, and fencing comprises pages 190 something to 217, something like that. It's in there. This is from what I could tell, this is a first print. There's no other date on here except that one. There's no publishing dates following that. It does say on here that, if I can get to it here, it does say this is a new larger edition. So I'm not sure if that means this is an expanded version of Volume 1 or an older Volume 2, but regardless, this is, from the best I can tell, a first print for Volume 2. It's got colored lithographs in there, which are color photos, and on some of them it still has the wax paper to protect it, and I think that's kind of cool. So yeah, Encyclopedia of Sports and Games covers crocodile hunting to bloodhound breeding. All right, so the fencing section was written by Camille Prevost, who was the son of Pierre Prevost, who was a student of Baptiste Bertrand. And that's relevant, and I'll explain that in a minute. But Baptiste was, for multiple sources, supposedly one of the most successful fencing teachers in Victorian London. And he also championship women fencing at a time when it was, widely regarded as a man's only sport. Camille was born in 1853, and he, in 1869, was appointed the first professor of fencing at the French Academy of Arms. I mean, he was, 17, 18 years old when that happened. And in the 1880s, he, from what I understand, was also the first to pen a basic manual on sport fencing, like all the conventions he got together, all the basic conventions he got together and actually penned those. Now, those pages on fencing is pretty typical stuff. What I did find interesting about it is two or three things. First, he actually talks about the first position, the guard, and the lunge as positions 1 through 3. So first is first position, the guard is second position, and then the lunge is being third position. That's the only place I've ever seen that put that way, and I'm thinking it's simply because it's the sequence of events. So it's first, you're in guard, and then you lunge. I have read before, it might even be in here, but in my memory, I've read that in dueling, there was very little footwork. In other words, not a whole lot of advanced retreating, certainly no cross steps, that type of thing. So the first 3 positions were those. You salute, you come on guard, and then you guys are just, they're lunging and recovering and parrying, lunging, recovering, and parrying. That's what I'm assuming is what they're talking about, a lack of footwork. There actually is some dueling videos by a guy named, I think his name is Schlager7 on YouTube, and he has collected rare footage of actual duels from the early 20th century. And that does seem to bear that up, especially the duels we're doing with sharp épées, or rapiers, whatever you want to call them, but they're not moving a whole lot. So there does seem to be some truth in that. Are you going to find this book? Probably not. I just went out and looked on eBay and Amazon, and I didn't find a copy. I got lucky. I don't even remember how much I paid for this, but I got it off of eBay years ago, and was surprised. I just got it because it was an old fencing book, and I was pleasantly surprised that it turned out to be a first edition. So obviously I don't write notes in this one. But it's a fascinating read. I've said at the beginning of the series that one reason to read fencing books is you get a different perspective, especially from fencing coaches and fencers from a century ago, and that's exactly what this gives you. And it's absolutely fascinating to read, and discover why we do things now.
And now for something completely different.
All right, gang, you're in for a treat. Badminton Library of Sports and Pastimes. This book was written in 1889. It's about 400 some odd pages, but of course not all of that is on fencing. This book does cover fencing, wrestling, and boxing. Oh, yeah. This is the book I cradle at night when I fall asleep dreaming about fencing. Love it. Now, the fencing portion was written by Camille Prevost. Now, if you recall, I said from the 1911 book, Camille also wrote that section for that book, the fencing section for that book. And he was credited for putting together the first book on the conventions, the basic conventions of fencing. That's this book. That's this link written in 1889. So it uses a lot of the same lithographs in it that are in the 1911 copy, or the 1911 book, the Encyclopedia of Sports. So yeah, that's really cool. Now, you're probably asking yourself, well, gee, it's an old book. That's great, Coach. Why is it so special? This book is special for a very special reason. Think about the dates, okay? The American Athletic Union was formed in 1888. The Amateur Fencers League of America was formed in 1891. First modern Olympics, it had fencing in it, 1896, and the International Fencing Federation that still operates today, 1900. What does that tell you about this book? It was written at the dawn of the sport of fencing. What we do now, this was born at the beginning of it. This probably, as far as best I can tell, is the very first book that covers modern fencing as a sport. It was written before the AFLA formed, right? And 1 year after the AAU. So that's what makes this so special. It gives us a window into the origins of modern fencing. No electric stuff in it, obviously, but I think that's special. I think that's incredible. And there's a couple things I'd like to read from you. Stay with me. A couple things I'd like to read from you from this book that have a lot of impact, okay? And the very first page for fencing. The book starts off with fencing, and the very first page of that section has something that just hits. And that should tell you how much great historical information is in this book. I mean, it's insane. Stay with me, it's short. The art of giving without receiving has been studied for a very considerable time. But though those who have devoted themselves to it had every possible reason for endeavoring to improve it, to develop its true principles, to bring it to perfection so far as might be, were in fact stimulated by the strongest and most enlightened form of self-interest, that which urges a man to take his enemy's life and preserve his own. Wow, what's he saying right there? He's saying that fencing was born from the art of self-defense. The sport of fencing came from self-defense. And we all know that in the background. We all know, dueling gradually became modern fencing. But to hear it put into those words, which are not easy to read, 130, 140 years ago, really drives it home that this is a combat sport. It is a martial sport. I've always referred to it that way. It is just like boxing and wrestling and other point-driven sports, combat sports. So, we are far removed from those times, which is good. So what we do today is nothing like that. We're up there fighting for points. We're making goofy decisions, knowing that right of way protects us for foil and for saber to hopefully get us that point. But still, that's what makes sports like ours, especially fencing, unique to me. It's not like basketball, football, tennis. It's not like those sports that were created from the imaginations of others as a pastime. I don't think any of those have any type of historical context, but similar to ours. So I think that's really amazing, and to really see that in print from that long ago. The other section, real quick, is on page 33. It's not cut, which means it's easy to read. Okay, here we go. Stay with me. No system can altogether make up for the inequalities of nature and put the slow by the side of the swift. And a man who is naturally quick and active may be too much for one who is naturally slow and heavy. What's he saying right there? Simple. In modern terms, there's always somebody faster, better, stronger, smarter. Simple. That's all there is to it, right? So what we try to really ingrain here with our students, with our fencers, is that it does not matter if you're ever going to be a championship fencer. It does not truly matter if you ever stand on that podium, ever get that medal, right? The goal, the drive, the self-improvement. That's the challenge. Improve on yourself. If you enjoy the sport, if you enjoy what you're doing in the sport and what the sport has to offer to you, then put your heart and soul into it. It's all that matters, is be the best that you can be. I often tell a story here, especially as new students come in, about how I went to a NAC one time, and I was an E and went up against a C-rated fencer. I was Div 2 foil, and I was trounced 15-3, I think. It was 15-3. But we went well into the second round before he knocked me out. And that is today, I don't remember his name, but today that's one of my favorite bouts, because I worked harder in that bout than I've ever worked before to keep going. You know, he could have knocked me out in the first 3 minutes, but I kept it going. I kept them off me. I tried to score the best I could, using every bit of strategy for running the clock and everything else, right, to get into that second encounter. So it's probably close to 6 minutes. But that's what I'm talking about. You know, even though I lost that bout, and I lost it badly, point-wise, it's still one of my favorite memories in the sport. I worked so hard, and that's what's important. That's what everybody, all of you need to understand. That's what's important. Not the stupid medal, not the stupid podium. If you get there, that's great. Yes, it's nice to have those extrinsic rewards, but they're not always there. You can't rely on them to make you happy in what you do. All right. Let self-improvement, let the challenge of that, let your progress in the sport make you happy. I promise you, if you put everything you have into it, if you're coming in toward the bottom of competitions, you're not going to be coming at the bottom later on. You won't. You may not be coming in first, but you're not going to be coming at the bottom, and that's great. You know, there are so many different reasons, other than just physical, why certain people excel in the sport and others are just average. I hate to use that word, but I'll use it for me. I'm an average fencer, right? So don't sweat that. Just understand that there's always going to be somebody better, faster, smarter, stronger. Okay. I hope you enjoyed this episode. This is an incredible book if you can get your hands on it. I went on eBay trying to find it, just like I do the other books. And although I did find other volumes of this, it wasn't fencing, boxing, wrestling. Some of the books are going for over $300. There was one with a starting bid of $40. I think that one was figure skating. I'm not sure. There was even a collection going for $700. This book wasn't in it. I did not find the fencing one. So if you see it, grab it up as fast as you can, and provided the price is reasonable. But I mean, it's just an amazing piece of history that I'm so happy to have it in my library. So hope you enjoyed the episode. See you in the next one.